Okay, I'm going to try to do what I can here to explain basics of rigging, specifically with what you're trying to do. Alright, I know this is 2.7 and it's a little different, but everything I do in 2.7 should be available still in 2.8 when it comes to like stuff like weight tools. So to start out, you're going to want to go to options in weight paint mode, and you're going to find show zero weights right here. Set this from none to active. What this does is it changes the default look of weight paint mode. See, uh, everything is blue here. This generally means it has no weights applied to these sections, but it's a little bit hard to see with very low weight values. So if you set it to active instead, anything that has purely zero will be black instead of dark blue. So it becomes a lot easier to see like um, how much of an area that a certain rig actually or certain bone actually encompasses here. So you can see, like, if I go to the hand, you see these are still blue instead of black. It means that they have an extremely low weight value. You can see up here it's some crazy thing over here, but it's basically effectively zero. First thing I'm going to show you is how to deal with just cleaning an area that you want to work on. So you don't have these little blue artifacts here that are virtually zero, but Blender doesn't know that and still tags them as blue. So you're going to use this function here, clean. It's going to be set to active group. You can also set it to all deformed pose bones or all groups that maybe vertex groups that aren't even part of the rig that don't have bones assigned. But for this one, we'll do active group and we'll set the limit to 0.001. And that should be enough to get rid of these virtually zero ones that still have a exceedingly low number applied. So that's the first thing you'll want to do. The second thing you'll want to do is auto normalize. Make sure this is always on when you're weight painting, or else you're just going to have a really big mess it's going to be really confusing. Auto normalize, like I said, it makes sure that all weights on a vertice, between all the bones that that vertice has a shared influence with, they will always add up to 1.0. So you see, let's see, this vertice right here has a weight of, let's make it zero point 0.9 just for clarity's sake. So this weight has 0.9 on this vertice. That means no matter how many other bones that it's assigned to, it's split between a 0.1. So I think, yeah, the only other bone this one is assigned to is the wrist twister, this big long green bone right here. So if I click on it, you see it's zero point 0.1 because the hand has 0.9. So the total value is 1.0, which means it's normalized. So if I instead make it this one 0.6, you see you can hold control and click and you can copy the weight value. You see how it's changing on the top left as I control click. You can use that to basically identify what the value is in addition to copying it to the draw weight. So we've made this 0.6. We go back to the wrist twister, which is the only other bone that it's shared with. And you'll see the wrist twister has been updated now to be 0.4 because it has to stay at 1.0 normalized. That's really important, okay? So we're going to go ahead and put this back at zero point 0.1, which should make it 0.9 on the hand. So we click it, it's now 0.9 on the hand, just like you would expect, okay? So that's very important, all right? We want to check the lower arm bone, and basically, to do a hand, we will start with the lower arm bone being the only weights assigned to the fingers, the hands, and the wrist. So start right here, and we're just going to paint 1.0 onto all of this. And you want to make sure you do that with limit selection to visible act. You see, by having this um, actually not highlighted, it is basically makes it enabled. Um, it works the other way around, but that doesn't matter. When this is not highlighted, you can see through the vertices to the vertices on the other side of the clipping border. which is really important because that makes it so you can paint through every single one of them instead of just what's visible. See, if I turn this off and I paint, let's go into ortho. If I paint here, you'll see it doesn't appear on the other side. All right, go back to ortho from the front, paint again. With it on, paint that same one like that. Look to the other side, you see now it's on the other side because it can paint through it with this active. So that's another very important button to remember. So back to ortho, make sure this is all 1.0. So that means now that the left lower arm bone has complete influence over the wrist, the hand, and all of the fingers. So if you check these bones, they have virtually zero. You see it's doing the same thing again. We'll just hit clean, check all these bones. And now they're all going to have those like virtually zero weights. So I'm going to select all of these bones. Now I'm going to hit clean, selected pose bones. So now these have all been cleaned, but they were basically all zero. Some of them have a little bit left over, like this one is 0.00000117. So I'm going to raise the value again. I'm going to select all these. I'm going to go back into weight paint mode and do clean with selected. I'm going to do 0.001. That should be good. See, now these all have complete zero. There's no blue splotches anywhere. All right, that's what you want. All right, so we're going to look at the hand again, or the lower arm again. You see, the lower arm has complete control over everything from the elbow all the way down. That's how we're going to start, okay? And we're going to absolutely make sure that auto normalize is on. It's the only proper way to do this. So we're going to hide the wrist twister for now because we'll be doing that last. All right, we'll start with the hand bone. Now, I will show you weight painting for the fingers, but for the hand, I'm going to use a weight gradient. And I've showed you this before on Shantae. So weight gradients are really great. They do not auto-normalize even if this is on, so you have to make sure you normalize them by default. So I'm going to go over to the vertex groups tab. I'm going to expand this a little bit, so this is all we're going to be working with right now. Let's go ahead and split the hand off because we're not going to be using anything else right now. And we're going to do remove unused vertex groups. This is an add-on, but it should also be standard with 2.8. All right, so now we only have, don't need spine there. Now we only have the upper arm, the lower arm, hip, neck. Why is that there? Get out of here. Upper arm and lower arm, the only bones that are in the vertex group list, okay? So that's all we need to see right now. All right, so now I'm going to look at the hand bone. All right, I'm going to select it, and you'll see that the weights are purple because the vertex group doesn't even exist. If it existed, they would all be black because there's nothing assigned. So to make it exist, instead of doing plus and then typing it in, what we can do is in weight paint mode, just click somewhere off on the grid that's not attached to the model. Just click anywhere, right? And it'll automatically create that vertex group. So now we have a vertex group for the hand, which means we can actually paint on the hand. You could also just paint on the hand and that will automatically create it. But for starting with a weight gradient, we're just going to click somewhere to create the vertex group. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set our weight to 1.0, going to do weight gradient, and we're going to basically try to create a weight gradient for the hand. And let's see. This is just some trial and error. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it once like this. I'm going to do it a second time to get these orange weights. I don't want that many orange. Or I don't want this part of the hand being that influenced by the lower arm bones. So I'm going to do probably like that, I think. Yeah, that's good. All right, so by doing a weight gradient, you see it works, but it's not normalized because it does not work with auto normalize. So what we need to do now is we're never going to touch the upper arm bone. We're going to lock that. Make sure that never gets edited because we're never touching that. And now for the lower arm bone, what we're going to do is there's different ways we can do this. We can select the hand bone. We can do normalize all. Always change this to deform postbone so it doesn't try to normalize with vertex groups that aren't part of the rig. Always make sure it's deform. And we can do lock active, which is on by default. And this since lower arm isn't locked, it'll normalize with the lower arm. So all these weights that were red before, now basically um, those have been subtracted based on what the hand was that we painted. So this is now normalized, right? Okay, so starting out, it doesn't look so great. We'll get to that. Another way you can normalize is, let's see here. We can lock, let's see, let me undo the normal. Okay, so we can lock the group that we want to keep. So we'll lock the hand right after we've applied the gradient. We'll go to the lower arm and we can do normalize all and then uncheck lock active. So that means because upper arm and hand are both locked, uh, the only one it can subtract from is lower arm by checking unlock. By unchecking lock active, that means lower arm L will not be considered locked, which means it will end up subtracting from lower arm. So that's the other way you can do this. Locking and unlocking groups is very important when weight painting or doing any kind of weight tools. So it basically this is how you control how normalization is applied across the model by locking and unlocking groups. Okay, so we'll always leave upper arm locked, go back to hand. So now this is normalized, and this doesn't look so great. Not that great. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch from draw to blur. And what blur does is it's like a smooth modifier. So I'm going to go ahead and paint on the blocky areas with blur. You see already that makes a really nice difference. And because auto normalizes on, it subtracts that from lower arm, which is what we want. See it? We go back before we did it. We can also do it like this too. That also works because the only other group that it can influence is hands. So it will end up if you use blur to add to lower arm, it's subtracting from hand. Or if you go to hand, use blur, it's just subtracting from hand and adding to lower arm. These are the only two that can be influenced, and auto normalize is on, which means that it's staying normalized. So if you add to one group, it subtracts from another group. Very important. All right, I'll stay on hand. And I think the main problem right here is there's just not enough edge loops. So blur can only do so much for us. So what I'm gonna do actually right now is I'm gonna quad this. Or actually, no, that's not gonna work because it's not a straight quad. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna attempt to quad this. Make sure whenever you quad, compare UVs on so you don't break UV edges. Raise the angle as much as I can. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use the knife tool. That's K. I'm gonna pull it down and I'm gonna hit Z while the knife tool is active. You see how it adds extra little green boxes? That means it's going through the entire model, not just what's visible from the front view. So it's the same as that button we pressed at the bottom that I showed you earlier. So K, bring down the line, press Z so it goes through the whole model, left click, and then there you go. Oh wait, you have to apply it. 1 second. Left click, and I think, nope, I haven't done this in a while. Oh, I think you have to press space. Z, left click, space. There you go. Okay. So now we've added another edge loop here. I'm gonna go to this, and we triangulated it because the whole model's already triangulated. Why not? I'm gonna turn off this just so I can see a little better. Just gonna do a very simple smooth here. No, only smooth on Y, just a little bit. Do I want Z? No, I don't want Z. Just gonna do Z manually just a little bit. Right there. That's good enough for these purposes. There. Alright, so we have an extra edge loop there. So now it already looks a lot better there, but it still needs some help. It needs some right here. I'm gonna hide the watch. We don't need the watch active. Alright, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna attempt to quad. Not gonna be perfectly. It's not gonna be perfect because you can see that there's sections that actually really just this part right here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna quad this. I'm gonna remove this edge loop just for this tutorial. And I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna control R to do a loop cut. Put that in there. I'm gonna subdivide this, retriangulate this. Sometimes it does this. When I retriangulated, it created like a little tiny thing in here instead of doing it how I want it to. When you go back to triangulate, go from beauty to fixed. If fixed doesn't work, do fixed alternative. That should fix it. All right, so now this is how we want it. So we've added another one here. And again, I'm going to smooth it. And that didn't work because this one part right here is not a quad. So it kind of got a little funky. Just going to fix that manually. Move that back into place. That's good enough. All right, so now we have a brand new edge loop here. And remember, if you do any modeling stuff like this, always make sure you're staying in quads. You don't want to be like me where I'm just like really quickly triangulating things and adding things without actually quadding. Don't do that. Always work in quads if you're going to mess with the model. All right, so now we have some more edge loops here. So you see, adding edge loops, it tries to interpret what the weighting should be based on what it used to be, but it doesn't always do that great of a job. So but now we have some more edge loops here to work with. So we're going to try blurring again. Let's see. Okay. I'm not going to use blur here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, and turn on see everything. Let's set this to 0.1 just for clarity's sake. Oh, 0.01. All right. 0.01, paint withdraw. And then let's go to, say, 0.05 maybe. All right, need a little more. Let's do 0.1. Paint. All right, there we go. That's a little better. Now, what I like to do is I'll select like 0, based like I'll control click over here to set it to 0, or you can control click over here, set it to 1.0. Remember, control click copies whatever the weight paint is, or the weight paint value is. So I'll set it to 0 by control clicking over here. Let's see here. I want to add? Yeah, I want to add a little bit here. So if you see the circle, the red circle where my cursor is, if you click on the vertice, it applies the full weight value. If you click just at the very edge of the circle, it doesn't apply the full weight value. So one thing I like to do is I will click at just the very edge of the circle just to add weight or subtract weight without applying the full value of the weight. So you see, I just want to pull it a little bit here, and then I'll click that to copy that, and then I'll apply it across the whole thing. So that's a little bit smoother based on where the weight falls off at on the left. We'll do the same thing here just a little bit. We want higher value, so just a little bit at the edge. All right, apply that across everything. And let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to try blur again. I'm going to blur this area right here. Don't want to blur here because if we blur here, it doesn't understand what we're trying to achieve because it wants, okay, this is 5.73. Let's make this 1.68 based on the distance between these two. Well, we don't actually want that because the hand doesn't really bend that way. So we'll paint this part manually, and then we'll blur this part. We'll blur this part to fix this part automatically. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. And blur changes the way it works depending on the pose that the model is currently in. So say if I tried to blur, if it was in this pose, it would be just a little bit different. So keep that in mind. All right, so it's a lot better than it started out. This is where I'd probably stop using blur here, and I would probably start doing some manual fixes. Let's start with it bending downwards. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is try it. Again, trial and error comes into play here. I'm going to try a weight gradient to fix this part here. So this should be out more, like this. I think I'm actually just going to keep that instead of a weight gradient. I'm going to do remember, if you're not at the very point where you're clicking, it doesn't do the max value. So I think I'm just gonna apply 0.9 there, copy 0.9, apply it over here, So there, that's already a lot better. Let's see. Pull this up more. Now remember, the way the hand bends down is different from the way the hand bends up. It's different the way you want it to look. So, yeah, let's see. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight the lower arm bone, and I'm gonna try blurring this part over here. Raise the value. I'll turn accumulate on so I can keep going over it, and it keeps adding. And it doesn't want to go anymore. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna try a weight gradient. Again, trial and error. Don't always know exactly if you're gonna get what you want on the first try. So for what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna highlight. I only want to work with these vertices. I don't want to mess with the bend right here. I don't want to touch that. So I'm just gonna highlight all these vertices. Go back into white paint mode, and you see these two buttons down here. There's face masking, and then there's vertice masking. Either one will do what you want, but it just depends on what you want to be visible. So I'm going to do vertice masking just so I can see everything a little bit better. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to weight gradient, and I'm going to do a circular weight gradient. And now I can just pull like this, right? But I want it to be more circular because I don't want it to influence so much up here and down here. So I'm going to do a circular weight gradient, which is you do that by holding Control, Alt, click, and then drag like that. I think that's how you do it. You can also just apply a directional one and then switch it from linear to radial. That also works. I'm going to do Control, Alt, click to do like a circular one. And we want to find the right spot. I'm going to lower this to, let's say, 0.5. Let's see. You don't want to do it. You want to do it less than you think because you still have to normalize it. Remember, weight gradients don't normalize. So I'm going to do normalize all, lock active. So now the hand is normalized with that. So that fixed that a little bit. I'm going to try blurring again. Blurring is not helping. Blurring is making it worse. We'll just blur down here. And because we're working only in Blender, you don't really have to worry about low weight values or the bone limit weight of 3. That doesn't matter in Blender, so you can just blur is very helpful. So this is a little bit better. I'm going to turn off vertice masking because it messes with your selection. I think to truly fix this, I'm going to have to do it manually from this point on. So let's see what we can do here. This is okay, not bad. Let's see what I can do here. I'm gonna work from lower arm, not hand. Alright, I'm gonna pull this out a little bit more. Pull this down more. Again, control click is the key to doing this quickly. And not clicking completely within the center of the circle. So you can apply weight gradually instead of absolutely. And I think, let's see here. I'm gonna increase this more. This is the part where you kind of just have to do it manually. Because the way it bends down is going to be different from how it bends up. So those kind of automatic calculations aren't exactly what you want. It's different depending on the way the hand is bending. So we're going to add more weight to the lower arm towards the bottom and less towards the top of the wrist. And again, this gets easier with more topology, but also harder, if that makes sense. There's more you have to be concerned with, but there's also more that you can work with. So it takes longer, but you can potentially get better results. So I'm just going to manually keep smoothing this out until it's about how I want it. And that might be about as good as I can get it. Let's try adding more like over here. And ideally, you're mirroring this to the other side. So you only have to do this once. Doing this manually on the other arm, that would be retarded. You don't ever want to do that. Then I'll show you how to mirror after we're done. So don't worry about that. So go ahead and take your time because you're only doing it once. You're going to mirror it over. And even if it's not perfectly mirrored, there's ways to still get it over there. I'll show you that. So take your time. You're not going to have to do this twice. Now I'm going to try blur again. Again, blur won't always give us what we want, but it can be helpful. Yeah, blur didn't really help there. Didn't really do what I want. Try blurring here. Nope, not helping. Try blurring here. Not helping. Okay. I think that's about as good as we're going to get it for now, at least for the sake of this tutorial. So we bend down. Go ahead and texture's glitched off. I'm going to save this as a temp file on my desktop, reload it. Now fix the textures. All right. Okay, so there we go. I'd say that looks pretty okay considering how quickly we did this, right? And I think okay, so when this bends up, I can see right here, we want to add a little bit more down here, but this could potentially mess with the bend downwards, so you gotta be careful doing stuff like this. Let's see how it ends up looking when I bend down now. Ooh, see, you kind of have to make a compromise here. Or you can add a helper bone. But I don't want to mess with helper bones right now. So just find an in-between, I guess. I'm gonna see. Yeah, see, doing it too much for the top kind of messes with the bottom. Let's see what we had before. Yeah. Uh, this is a common dilemma that you might run into. I'm gonna try blurring like this up here. Try to mitigate the situation. And I don't want to touch down here because that'll mess up the other bending downwards. So I'm just gonna try to make this passable. Maybe pull a little bit down there. Yeah, that's okay. I don't think we're gonna get it a lot better than that. I'll try one more thing here. I'll try another weight gradient. Same thing, we'll turn on vertice masking. Start over here with a radial. And then I'll take away with another radial down here. Normalize. Okay, let's see how that worked. Ooh, it's okay. It's alright. Smooth out the wrist here. Because again, it's greater at the top, less at the bottom because of the difference in the bendings. Alright, that's better. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. So we're going to leave it like that. Bending up isn't that great, but you can create a helper bone that can fix stuff like that. But I won't cover that right now. Again, with the twisting is also not that great. That's what helper bones are for. That is what the wrist helper is for. And out of all the helper bones you might end up creating, the wrist helper is probably the most necessary. All right, I'm going to move on to fingers. And I'm going to only do the thumb and the index finger just for the sake of this tutorial because it's the same process for all of these. So I'm going to hide those bones. Now, we're going to lock, let's see, we're going to lock the lower arm bone because we're done messing with that. Because right now, when we rig the fingers, we only want it to take away from the hand. We don't want to take it away from the lower arm bone or the upper arm bone because we're not messing with those. So really quick, I'm going to get rid of that. Now lock the lower arm bone, go to the hand bone. We're only going to take away from the hand. We'll start with the thumb. Okay, so this can be tricky. So we only want it to influence certain vertices here. So I'm going to use masking. Let's see. Okay, let's try this as our mask. All right. Thumb bone is selected. We need to create the vertex group. So again, we'll just click anywhere. That created the vertex group down here. I'm going to turn on vertice masking, and I'm going to rotate my camera in a way that kind of gets me the angle I want when I do a linear weight gradient. With a weight of 1.0 on draw mode, I'm going to pull my weight gradient, and let's see. We want the vertices on the very left, the last ones that are part of the mask. Those should be at near 0 values. So let's try right there. Let it go, normalize all, deform bones, lock active. That way it takes away from only the hand. The other two are locked, so it won't take away from these. So you see it took away from the hand like we wanted, all right? And we'll try moving that. Okay, so you see the first, back here, it's okay. Up here, obviously, this needs some help. I'm going to turn off masking. I'm going to go back to blur, and I'm going to try blurring this over. And I'm going to just blur the crap out of this, right? Blur, blur, blur. It's okay that it tags everything. Don't worry about that. I'm going to do clean. .001, we'll get rid of that. Let's do 0.005. 0.05. Okay. All right, so first thumb bone. Fix this. We might need to take this from lower arm. I don't like how that's doing that there. Maybe that's not. I'm just gonna manually fix that. I don't know why it's doing that. Again, you only have to do it once, so take your time. It's all right if you have to do things manually. All right. All right. So first thing I'm gonna do now, well, I think we've done the first thing many times. Who knows what step we're on? After our initial weight gradient, we just want to use blur and other functions to try to smooth things out. I think here I'm gonna manually fix that. Again, it's only taken away from hand. Okay. All right, that's good enough. All right, so now I want to reduce it around here a little bit. I'm going to set back to 0. I'm going to do another weight gradient, and we don't need to mask it because this is we're doing a weight gradient that's setting 0. So the 0 on 0 isn't going to add anything, obviously, so we don't have to mask it. And let's do a circular. No, let's do a linear, actually. I'm going to start from like right. All right, and I'm going to make sure this stays back at 1.0, so I'm going to pull this way. Okay, let's hit normalize, see what happens. All right, this got fixed, but then this part got kind of messed up. Let's see here. Maybe blur will help us out. Yes, thank you. There we go. Okay, there's your first thumb bone. I think that's what we want, right? make sure it's not doing anything stupid. Let me turn this off. I see one issue right here. I'm gonna have to manually paint this. It's pretty normal for finger bones and the hand to cause this much trouble. This and the face are usually the hardest part to rig here. Wow, I've been doing this for over a half hour. You better watch this video, man. Yeah, I'm just gonna manually fix these. What are you gonna do about it? Oh, I know, you're gonna manually fix it. Can't do everything automatically. Wish you could. Alright, let's look for any other weirdness that you want to fix. The first bones in the chain are always the hardest, so this is pretty normal, especially for the thumb. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah. I want to fix this right here. Pull this out. Push up. I don't like this right here. It should be fixed. There's some techniques you can do here. If you press Alt B and drag a box, it creates a clipping border. You can do this to basically mask what you're looking at. This is very helpful. I almost never use it because I just always forget about it, but it's very helpful. You should use it. Just go ahead, keep manually fixing problem areas. Press Alt B again to disable the clip and border. Pull it down. Anything to fix here? Probably just that. It's very important that the first finger bone is very well done because the next finger bones will be pulled from that finger bone. So the first one is the most important, the way it blends with it. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm not seeing really any other major issues, and continue to refine it just a little bit. This is probably the most important finger bone, this first thumb bone, because it pulls so much from the palm. And honestly, you don't even need to apply this much effort. This is kind of going into perfectionism territory, but, you know, nothing wrong with perfectionism. All right, so I think that's good. I'm going to keep the hand bone unlocked. I'm going to lock the first thumb bone. Oh, wait, am I going to do that? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to lock the hand bone and keep the first thumb bone unlocked. That's what I'm... Because now we're going to do the second thumb bone, all right? So, let's see. Hand stays locked because the first thumb bone took away everything we wanted to take away from the hand. So now, for the second thumb bone, we're only taking away from the first thumb bone. Basically, the thumb has already been properly subtracted from the hand. We don't want to subtract any more from the hand. All right? It works like a chain, okay? So, when you do your first bone, your first finger bone, like all of this, it's going to be... Why isn't this... All of this is going to be done for your first finger bone. And the reason you wouldn't just do this area, right, and then go to the second bone, do this area, third bone, do this area. The reason you don't do that is because you want your very first bone to completely subtract away from the hand. So I don't know why it's not working with auto normalize. I'm not paying attention though. So let me just undo all of that. So let's see here. So you see the first thumb bone includes basically the weights that will be eventually applied to the second thumb bone and the third thumb bone. So the reason we do it like that is because it subtracts completely from the hand. So we can move to the next thumb bone, and uh, we only need to leave the first thumb bone unlocked because the hand has already been properly subtracted. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. That can get a little bit confusing. All right, so I'm going to go to the second thumb bone, and we're going to create a vertex group for it, and we're going to start with the pose out this way, just so I can make the gradient a little bit easier. All right, let's see here. Now you see this right here and this right here. These vertices, or should I say these edges, are here for finger bone deformation. These are specifically here so that these can bend. Like you see right here. Oops, I don't want to do that. You see right here. You know what? I'm, I think it's because the hand is locked. That's why it's doing that. Dirt. All right. You see these right here, and like right here. You see these grouped up edges? Those are there for a reason. Those are there for the rigger to create properly rigged fingers. They don't really need to be there for the topology, but they need to be there for the rigging. That's very important. If you ever see finger bones that don't have these extra edges, then the modeler doesn't understand what rigging is. And he doesn't understand why they're necessary because without those there, they can't be rigged correctly. It's the same thing with the wrist. You remember how I added these edges to the wrist? I added this green one. I added this light blue one right here. Yeah, they're needed for rigging. Without them there, they can't deform well. It's bad news for the rigger. So we're going to try to follow what the topology's guidelines for where it should bend at, because these edge loops were added for rigging. All right, so I'm going to go back to bit thumb 1, make sure hand is locked. And the only one that's unlocked is thumb. All right, so with it posed out that way, just so I can see it a little bit better, weight at 1.0, we're going to do a gradient, and we're going to try to get, let me mask it, turn on mask. I'm going to remove this part of the mask because we won't be messing with that. Let's see. Maybe I need a little bit more than that. Yeah, I'm going to leave that active. I'm going to take away up here. That's good enough. I like that. Okay, so our goal is to get the control edge for this rig that was added basically for the thumb bone. Our goal is to get that to be like about 0.5. So we'll do 1.0 as usual. You can also, you can start at like 0.5 if you want, but then like everything up, towards the tip is still 0.5. So I usually would just start at 1.0. And the goal right now is to get the bend at those control edges that I was showing you, and then get everything past that to be 1.0, so we can take away from the first thumb bone. So you see how everything's 1.0 up here. The goal right now is to basically transfer that to the second bone. Then when we do the third bone, we're going to transfer that tip to the last bone. Okay, so we're working outward basically while taking away from the previous bone. This is how we handle proper normalization, okay? All right, so I'm going to do my weight gradient. Goal is to get this part right here to be green, around 0.5, I think. Let me look at where it bends. Yeah, something like that. We'll get it right. All right, so I'm full. Maybe not 0.5. Maybe let's try that. Let's see how that works. To normalize all, the only other group that's unlocked is thumb 0, so it takes away from thumb 0, or the first thumb bone. Let's try bending it, see what happens. Okay, so let's go ahead, disable the mask so we can go to pose mode. I don't like that, I don't know why it does that. Okay, so yeah, that's not really what we want. So this part can be difficult. I think I'm just going to do this by hand. Blur is definitely not going to give me what I want right now, so I'm not going to use blur. I think I'm going to go ahead and just manually paint this 1.0 where I know I want it to continue to just like bend fully. Hmm. You know what? Let me think here. You know what? You know what? I think I might actually just do this by hand. This bone is very tricky. This is one of the trickier bones on the entire model, the second thumb bone. I continually have trouble with this. I feel like I'm missing something here. I'm gonna try unlocking the hand bone. Make sure these are 0. Nope, that's not it. Not all right. There's no other bones influencing it. Let's just try subtracting from the first thumb bone. Yeah. Okay. So we want a little tricky here. Okay. I'm gonna do this one manually. No gradients. All right. That's getting towards what we want. Yeah, like I said, this one is tricky and can really trip you up. All right, towards the top, we want you want more influence towards the top and less towards the bottom. So I'm gonna manually paint this part. Blur it just a little bit. And try blurring towards the top only. That should help. Blur towards the top only. And leave the bottom alone. See, if we try to blur the bottom, it subtracts it again. We don't want it to really do that. Unless maybe I can lower it a little bit. Turn off accumulate. Why is auto normalize not on? How long has that been a thing? Oh, I don't like that. Alright, pretend auto normalize was always on. I don't know why that was off. That's not good. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not gonna do the blur here. Normalize all. That's probably why I was having trouble, because normalization wasn't on, and it was confusing me because I wasn't getting the results I was suspected. Do you see what I'm talking about? Why you want to have normalization on? Yeah, there you go, right there. See, suddenly this becomes a lot easier, and it actually starts making sense. At least to me it does. Maybe not to you yet, but you'll get there. Yeah, so auto normalize off, bad. Auto normalize on, good. There you go. So now suddenly this makes sense to me. Okay, good. I'm gonna manually paint this. Maybe I turn that off when I hit accumulate. I don't know, but don't do that. Just stop. Get some help. I'm gonna continue to clean this up manually here. Oh god, it's so much easier. Now I actually know what I'm doing here. I'm gonna continue to increase this a little bit towards the bend. We want it to bend fully towards the bottom. That's the rule of the fingers. It bends completely on the bottom and it's smooth on the top. I want to see what blur does for us here. That's that's good. I like that. Blur. Don't rely too much on blur. Sometimes it can be a bitch and not help you. Sometimes it'll just cause problems. I'll lower the intensity here. Try the strength, maybe? Yeah, strength. That's what I want. The way blur intensity works is kind of weird. I don't fully understand what it's always doing, so, but lowering the strength will definitely give you, like, a less intense effect with it. Okay, let's see what we got here. Don't like that. That needs to be fixed. Now, fingers don't actually bend this way, but whatever, why not? Hmm. So it's okay when it's out, but not when it's in ref pose. Hmm. Let me think. I probably should have checked for that sooner. Okay, I'm gonna create a clipping border so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Hold on. Hmm. No, that's not. Let's see. I go into face mode. I think. Yeah. Okay. If you hide stuff and go into face mode, it should also hide that, and then you can select all to work on it. Still not really ideal, but better than nothing. Again, I take back what I said about this being one of the hardest bones on the hand. This is the hardest bone, at least for this one. Is all right. I don't expect the other ones to take this long. This is also why I always do hands last, just because this can be very annoying, and half the time I'm just like I don't want to deal with that, but you do eventually have to deal with it. All right, let's see how it is now. So I'm gonna unhide, go add a face mask. Sure, this is okay. That's okay. Pull this out, bend down. Okay, yeah, that's closer to what we want. So I'm gonna we want to add more influence towards the palm. That's what's going on. I will attempt blur. I don't think it's gonna help much. Sort of help. And whenever you use blur, just make sure it doesn't break anything in other poses. Okay, so this is finally starting to work how we want it. Finally, okay. Okay. A little bit more here. And add a little bit back here. Because remember, if it looks good in one pose, that's great, but it needs to look good in every pose. So it needs to look good when this is not out. I'll see we messed it up again. So no, this has to be this much here. There's no way around that. So even if it looks good when the first thumb bone's out, it needs to look good when it's also in ref pose. So we can't take away from here. So we can only add. If we take away from here, we go back to the same problem that I just showed you. So this needs to stay yellow, which means that we need to blend towards the palm instead of towards the finger. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it makes sense to me. So that's something you'll pick up after doing this for a very long time. So we're going to blend towards the palm because we don't want to mess up the ref pose like I just showed you. All right, go back to ref pose, see how it bends. See, if I had tried to blend towards the finger, we would just end up with that same issue of this again. That. Okay. So it has to work in every pose. All right. Fingers don't bend this way, but let's see. Just for good measure, I'll try to make it a little bit better. Let's see if blur will help us or just cause problems. Not really helping. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make this more uniform. Just going to pick a weight value and go with it. All right, so everything on these edges is going to be 1. Make sure that these are going to be 1.0. Actually, no, I'll leave those at 9.7. Okay. That is not, you know what? I think that's about as good as it's going to get. I can try adding more here. I don't know how much that'll help. I don't think this is going to get any better. Here, I'll try adding more to the bend. And then maybe more down here. God, this bone is such a pain. Especially on this model where her hand shape is very defined and realistic. Makes it even harder. It's a lot easier on like cartoony models where the hand shapes aren't as crazy. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it at that. I've already spent way too much time on this one. There, we'll leave it at that. Say it's good. It's okay. It's not the best. It's all right. Okay. So, we still have our. Okay, so because we didn't subtract any more from hand, thumb one still works correctly. Because thumb one is really thumb one plus thumb two. Because thumb two is a parent or a child of thumb one. So thumb one isn't hurt by having anything subtracted by its child because it when you rotate thumb one, the child rotates with it. So you can basically subtract all you want. Like say, let's make all of this like as much as it can possibly be, right? The only reason it's the only thing that's left that's influencing it is the hand bone. You can still rotate thumb one and it's perfectly fine because all the weights are in the child, right? That's another reason we do this kind of like chain weighting where we go from the top of the chain to the bottom of the chain. So you can do whatever you want to thumb one since it's a child of thumb or to thumb two. Since it's a child of thumb one will still be fine no matter how you edit the weights as long as hand stays locked. Okay? I hope that makes sense because that's really important. So we're going to go ahead and undo what I just did here, obviously. So we have thumb one bends how we want, thumb two bends how we want. This out of here. All right. this should be a lot easier. We're gonna lock thumb one and only thumb two, or 0, 1. You know what I mean. So we're gonna lock thumb one, or gonna unlock thumb two because we're only gonna take away from thumb two. Now for thumb three, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to create a clipping border now, right here. There, all that other crap is out of the way. I'm just gonna click to create my vertex group. Now this part is pretty easy. I can already tell this should be a lot easier. I'm not even gonna do a weight gradient. I'm gonna turn on so I can see everything. I'm just gonna completely paint 1.0 on this whole thing. Now obviously that's not what we want, but this is really easy, guaranteed. Set this to 0.5, paint the top 0.5, and we'll continue to fix it. Don't worry. Clean this manually. Spends on Z. So what usually ends up happening is you have these two loops together. In this case, it's hard to tell where those are, but it's about right here. But that's where they want the modeler wants you to bend the thumb. So you usually will have the the towards the end of the finger, that being like right around 1.0, or maybe actually 1.0. I'm gonna make it a little less than that. Make it like 0.9. We'll make that 0.9. This should be almost 1.0. And then it bends into what should be actually not that much, because you don't want to pull the skin before the bend. So if I did a gradual, see, like if I tried to blur this, I don't think it would really give me what I want. Yeah, see, because too much skin is being pulled on this side. We don't want that. So I always try to do this manually. So just because the weights don't really blend into each other that well doesn't mean it's not giving you the result that you want. With fingers, especially the last finger bone, it's important to fine tune this manually. All right, that's about, honestly, is about as good as it's gonna get. I'm gonna go ahead and increase towards the top because the top bends much more. I'm gonna add some to the second hand thumb bone just to smooth it out a little bit. You can add even actually a little bit here just because the model is so high poly and it's got so much definition. We can add smaller weights here just to kind of clean it a little bit on these bends. All right, I'm going to disable the clipping border. Take a look at what we have here. Look at that. See, I told you that one would be easy. Now see, the important thing is here, we have a low weight on one side and high weight on the other side, and not a gradual, like, not like, because it's very important, because when you bend this way, all the skin here bends, and then all the skin here stays. That's really important for finger bones. And I don't like this right here. This, let me see here. Oh, I'm on blur. No wonder that's being annoying. Yeah, you want this to be more outwards. You don't want it to bend that much. Yeah, you want to try to have it maintain its volume, if that makes sense. So like when it bends, you don't want the the top of the finger to bend too much, if that makes sense. Actually, I don't think I really even did that right, but whatever. try to make it maintain its volume towards the top. Okay, let's just go with that. That's good enough. So we'll bend the first thumb, and we have the second thumb. No, fingers don't bend that way, but whatever. And then we have the third thumb. You bend that. Yep. That's about as good as it's gonna get, I think. Alright, that's the thumb. Now, the thumb, again, is the hardest part. I'm going to hide these bones. I'm going to lock all the thumb bones. We're not touching those. And I'm going to unlock hand once again because we're going to be working on the index, or the index finger. Okay, let's see. I'm going to create a mask, first of all. And remember, we want to include even the parts that have extremely low values. And then all of the entire finger, because remember, we're subtracting as we go. So we do want the first finger bone to in the beginning have total influence over the entire finger, not just the tip of the finger where it bends, or the base of the finger. Yeah, I think that's 0.0 right there. I'm gonna include this part. That's good. All right, we're gonna turn on our vertice mask. And am I gonna use a gradient? I think I am. Now remember, the hand is the only one that's unlocked. All right, so we are subtracting this from the hand when we normalize. And this is the bend point right. So we're gonna want probably just like that. We do want a high influence towards the bottom because we don't want the bottom to bend inward. Okay, I'm gonna normalize all. All right. Look at that. That went really well right from the beginning. Obviously, towards the creases in between the fingers, we need to clean that up. Go ahead and use blur on that. Remember, we're only subtracting from the hand, not any other finger bones. We haven't done that yet. Look at that. I don't even think I need to edit it anymore, do I? That's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. The only other thing I'm going to do is very, very slightly going to lower these ones towards the base, so it's straight. There we go. Perfect. Exactly what we wanted. All right. Now I'm going to bend the thumb bone out and do a clipping border. Actually, I'm going to bend the whole finger out like that. I'm going to do a clipping border right here so I can only see the finger. Oh, look how helpful that is. Lock the hand. Hand is perfect. We don't need to mess with that anymore. And we're going to keep the first finger bone unlocked. Move to the second. This should be pretty easy. Let's see here. Yeah, I already see exactly what it wants me to do. This should be easy. I'm literally just going to manually paint this. That's only subtracting from the first finger bone. You can clean as usual. It wants 0.5 here. I can just tell by the topology. Oh, see, it wouldn't let me paint there because normalize is on, but you see it's as the first finger bone doesn't touch that edge right there in the center that I want to paint green. It won't let me because it doesn't know how to subtract the 0.5 because there's nothing else that has that influence. So we can't paint on the first finger bone, but we can paint it on we can't paint on the second finger bone, but we can paint it on the first finger bone. And that will subtract it from the second finger bone. It's important to remember stuff like that. If you can't paint for some reason and auto normalize is on, it means that either the group that you're trying to subtract from is either locked or it doesn't actually have any influence over what you're painting on. So that's important to remember that. Okay. Get rid of that. Shouldn't be there. All right. pretty much don't even need to touch this. See, that's exactly what the modeler wanted you to do right there. You wanted 0.5 right there, 0 here, and 1.0 here, because that's how it's supposed to be. Now I'm gonna clean it up just a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and put these at like very low values, just so it bends just a tiny bit. And a little bit up here, just a little bit. Actually, you know what? I'm not gonna do that because I don't want this to bend in too much. I'm gonna do this though. Yeah, there we go. If you really, really want, you can clean it just a little bit towards the sides. Don't do too much though. Let me show you what happens if you set this to like 0.5 instead. Yeah. See, you don't want that. That looks terrible. That bending inwards, so these need to be very low values. So you can do just tiny, tiny, tiny bit on the bottom and then a little bit more on the sides. Like the bottom, yeah, I'm not gonna go past 0.05. Set these to 0.05. Set the sides to like, I'll set this whole part to 0.1. 0.1 all the way across. But the bottoms need to be very, very low. This bends on Y. There you go. Perfect. Doesn't even need to be edited anymore. Perfect. That's exactly what you want. See how easy that was? Third one has the same thing. Look for it. It's right here. I'm going to manually paint it. Lock the, let's see. We're going to lock the first index bone. Make sure the second index bone is unlocked, because that's all we're subtracting from. Make sure hand is locked, even though it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm going to create the vertex group. I'm going to manually paint it once again. All right. Let's see what it wants here. I think it wants 0 here. No, it wants, let's see. All right, I'm gonna do, let's try 0.9 here. And try 0.1 here. So yeah, that's what it wants you to do, pretty much. You see how it kind of collapses inward? You can see through here. You can see it's collapsing inward. That might look bad to you, but that's pretty much what the modeler wanted you to do. Because you're not actually going to end up seeing that. These tips of the fingers, you don't really see them that up close, so it's kind of okay if they collapse in that way. Sometimes that's the only way to do it. And if you try to smooth it out, it ends up just messing with the pen. So I'm gonna leave that like that actually. I used to get really like OCD over that, and I would always try to fix it, and I realized I'm like wasting my time to create like a 5% better result. It's just not worth it. All right, so we're gonna smooth the tips, clean, smooth the tips, or not the tips, the upper part where it bends. Smooth that out. We don't want it to lose its volume towards the top. So it has much higher assignment to the previous bone than to the bone that's bending. Let's see. All right, now we can try to improve this a little bit, like towards the sides. I'm going to go out of weight paint mode. I'm going to bend these in normal space so they're bending on their proper axis. And do 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Actually, I don't need to bend this, 90 degrees. Okay. All right, see right here, this bone, right? should be more. This should be like more green right here because we don't want those tries overlapping. You see that bad shading right there? It's due to the triangulation. So sometimes you might have to edit the sides just a little bit to kind of clean that up a little bit. Let's see what we did here. We gave that one like 0.65. Oh, I know why. It's not letting me paint because it has no influence. There we go. Try to mimic what we did on both sides here. There we go. Make this all the same weight for clarity's sake. Is that right? Reduce this just a little bit. You'd want it to maintain volume up here, and then volume when it goes outward. That's about good. Right, you see how I cleaned up the sides there, so there's not as much kind of like so the triangles don't like collapse inward on themselves as much. That's kind of important, but not super. Don't like stress out. What's really important is making sure that the proper volume is maintained on the bottom and towards the top. So even if it collapses in on itself, that's okay. You can try to clean it up, but usually this is kind of a waste of time for kind of a futile effort here. Let's see what happens if we do that. Doesn't really help. And it just creates kind of this situation here where it bends in a little bit. So honestly, I'm just going to let it collapse in on itself. Maybe, yeah, we can try getting there. Let's see. All right. We'll go with that, actually. And then I'll try reducing this here. I don't want to do any more because you need it to maintain its volume. There. That's as good as it is going to get. I kind of wish there was another edge loop up here. Let's see. For the armature modifier, if this button is selected, you can edit it in the pose. You can go ahead and quad this. You can add another edge loop, and it should automatically interpret it. So you see here, it creates a little bit of a nicer bend. You retriangulate. So that's very easy to do. There you go. That's the finger. Honestly, I don't think it needs to even be adjusted. That's the trick with fingers. They don't need purely, you know, they don't need pure. I'm gonna do the same thing here. They don't need the kind of gradients you would expect. Like they don't need the fall off that you would expect. Sometimes parts need higher influences than others just to maintain volume when it bends. Actually, I'm not gonna mess with that. All right, there you go. There's your fingers. It's been a very long time. An hour and 18 minutes. Is that it? I don't even know. It's gonna take a while to upload this. I will show you the face after this. There you go. Fingers perfectly rigged. At least we can pretend that they're perfect. I don't think anybody would criticize this rigging. I think this is studio quality rigging. That is studio quality rigging. Now you know how to do it too. It takes an eye for it. You will learn how to do this better over time. Don't stress out over it if you don't get it right on your first try. Look at this. Look how well this works. That is studio quality rigging. That's exactly what you should strive for. All fingers should function this way. You will never encounter a situation where fingers probably should not be rigged that way. There you go. And then you would just repeat what you did for the first index finger with every other finger, just modifying the location of the weights depending on the length of the finger and where the edges are, the control edges are. I'm going to show you how to actually, before I end the video, I'm going to show you how to mirror it. So we deleted everything. I'm going to save this. just so I don't lose that. I'm gonna go back to my start file. Let's see. Okay. Uh, let's use the model's real weights. Okay. Wow, I should have probably looked at these for reference. You see, the true weighting, um, that original weighting, it does the same thing. Where although it's not as smooth as ours, whereas like this is 1.0, this is 0, so it doesn't lose the volume, but it's smooth at the top, so it bends correctly. Oh, I see my mistake here. Yeah, screw that. I don't know. I hate that bone. That bone can die in a fire. I made it work. I don't care. Okay. Um, do I want to show you the wrist twister? I'll show you that in another video. Right now, I just want to show you how to mirror it, and then I'm gonna stop for now because I've been recording for a very long time. All right. Let's see here. First of all, I'm going to delete the wrist twisters out. So I'm going to lock every single bone. And the wrist twister is a child of the lower arm, not the hand. So after locking every bone, I'm going to unlock the wrist bone, and I'm going to unlock the lower arm bone. And on the wrist bone, actually no, you can do it either way. I'm going to do 1.0, see through. I'm going to paint everywhere, right here. And because the wrist bone is the child of this bone, and it's the only one that's unlocked, it just removes it from the wrist bone. Okay, so I'm going to delete that group. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Unlock the lower arm bone, unlock the wrist bone. Lower arm bone, just going to paint at 1.0. You'll see that it basically just subtracts it, or it subtracts it from the wrist bone. So again, I'll delete the wrist bone. All right, I'm going to completely delete the wrist bones right off the rig because we don't need to see them anymore. So now it's kind of similar to what we had before, where there is no wrist twister. Okay, it's the wrist twister bone. Basically, we just blended the weights of the twister back into the lower arm, which is it's the same result, except not having the wrist twister because the wrist twister was a child of the lower arm. So we just blended the child weights back into the parent weight. That means the actual deforming with the poses it's exactly the same. Okay. All right. So now for the right one, I am going to unlock the hand. Actually, all these bones, I'm going to select all of these. I think there's a way to unlock. Maybe have to be in edit mode. Let's see. Okay, well, I'm gonna unlock all. I'll just do that. And then I'll just paint here. So now everything on the right arm is completely parented to the right lower arm bone. So we want to keep these weights in the vertex group list because we're going to be transferring to them. Now, the easiest way to do this is if the mesh is properly symmetrical, we're going to take this, is that equal? We're going to do mesh, snap to symmetry, 787 already symmetrical, 0 pairs mirrored. This mesh was already symmetrical, but you may have had to do that anyway so Blender can properly X mirror. Even if the mesh is already symmetrical, sometimes you have to do that before X mirror actually works. So, okay, we just guaranteed that everything that's highlighted is in fact mirrored, and Blender knows that it's mirrored, which means mirror operations can work on it. So, first way to do this is, let's start with just the hand bone. We will copy, actually, gonna have to go ahead and delete the vertex group for the right hand bone. All right, we're gonna copy the left hand bone, copy vertex group. Before you rename it, mirror vertex group. I said some failed, ignore that. If it looks right, it's right. If it said it was symmetrical and it looks right, ignore it, that some failed. I don't know why it does that. I'm going to rename it to R. Select R. We just mirrored it, basically. Okay, but we have to mirror the other weights too. So let's go ahead and delete all of the the finger vertex groups for the right hand. There we go. Now we only have the hand and the lower arm. So I'll just do the thumb. You can do it. You have to do it one by one. Copy vertex group. Copy vertex group. Copy vertex group. Then mirror. Mirror. And mirror. Now you can rename them. So we are sending what's on the left side to the right side. See? Now remember, it's not normalized by default, so we don't do normalization until all the weights are transferred. Now let's pretend we did the other fingers, but we'll just do the thumb now. So we're gonna lock all the thumb bones because these are the correct normalized weights. It just doesn't know it yet. Gonna lock the hand bone. The hand bone is actually normalized too. You know what? The only thing that needs to be normalized is the lower arm bone. So hand and all the thumb bones are now locked. And let's lock everything actually, except the lower arm bone. And then we'll do normalize all. And we'll do deform post bones. We check the lower hand bone, and there you go. So if you ever have this is because we haven't transferred these finger weights. For the sake of this tutorial, we can very easily fix that by selecting the hand bone, unlocking it, and then just painting 1.0 on it. See? There you go. So locking the groups and normalizing, you got to pay attention to what you're doing. This is very important. But yeah, so just pretend we mirrored all the groups like that. And then we subtract all of the mirrored groups from the lower arm bone, which previously was 1.0 on the hand. Okay? So now let's say the meshes aren't actually symmetrical. Let's say that you couldn't mirror because for whatever reason it's not symmetrical, or you can't snap it to the symmetry for whatever reason. There are other ways of doing this. I'll show you another way. Let's see. Once again, I'm going to delete all of these groups here. Delete, 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 delete. And then I'm going to set this all back to 1.0. So the lower arm bone, again, is affecting the entire arm and the hand on the right side. I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to cut right here, a Shift D to duplicate, press escape so you're not moving it, press P to separate to selection. Now this is its own object. We're going to go to vertex groups, remove unused, so only the vertex groups that are part of this cutout are included here. Okay, so you can see them all here. Now there's two things you can do here. The first thing, SX -1. Scale on the x-axis -1. That basically puts it on the other side. Oh wait, did I cut here? I don't want this part here. Get rid of that. There you go. Alright, so we duplicated the left hand. I'll do S in object mode, by the way. SX -1. Scale on the x-axis -1. So that puts it on the other side. And I'll just move this up just so you can see. By doing that, we have basically flipped this hand over to this side. Now it's not applied. If you look in the transform values, you can see that the scale is x -1. It needs to be 1.0. It needs to be applied. So we're going to do Control A to apply the scale. And you see, because we did that, it flipped the normals because it's expecting these to be reversed. So to fix that, we'll do W in edit mode and flip normals, and we'll flip it back. So now the scale is applied. This is the finalized scale. Again, the location is 22Z because I moved it up. You can just Alt G to get fix that. That's just so I can show you. All right, so we've applied the scale and flipped the normals back. Now, there's two things you can do here. You can either just completely delete the prior right hand. You can change all of these underscore L's to underscore R. I have a plugin that can easily do this. Battery name, the selected target, the selected object. We will rename its vertex groups. We will find L, change to R. And now these are all R. I will merge this back with the original model. I will select the edge loops on the break. I will do remove doubles. And look what we've done. We have transferred the weights, basically. And this only works if you can actually just paste the model from the left side to the right side and the UVs match, which it does on this model because it's actually both arms use the same texture layout. So you can in fact do that. But if you can't do that, like say the right arm used different texture space than the left arm, or if there was some other reason you couldn't paste it like that, the other way we can do this is let's see. So we can't actually delete the arm. So what we'll do instead is I will create a mask, or you could split the object, but that adds an extra step in my opinion. I'll create a new vertex group. We'll call it mask assign. Okay. So now because this is right over the existing topology, I'm going to go to the original model or the original object. We're going to do a data transfer. I'm going to set the group to mask so it only affects what we masked. And the source object will be body 0.001, which is the arm duplication. We're going to do vertex group. We're going to transfer vertex groups with nearest face interpolated. Actually, I think, can we do topology? No. Can we do vertex, nearest vertex? I think that might work better, but honestly, I think I'm just going to do nearest face interpolated because sometimes vertex will be a little weird. It should give the same result considering everything is in exactly the same spot because it's symmetrical. So you could do either or. Let's try nearest vertex, whatever, why not? And we'll make sure that this actually doesn't have any weights on anything except the... Okay, good. So it doesn't actually have weights. You see they're purple? That means that there is no vertex group for any of these finger bones. This get a little confusing. All right. So let's see. I'm going to hit apply and see if it did it. No, it didn't do it. I think we have to do generate data layers and apply. Sometimes I still get confused by this. Nope, it's not. Try by order. Oh, you know what? It's because we didn't, I think it's because we didn't rename these to R. Okay, yeah, so we have to rename these to R anyway. Okay, so these are R now. Generate data layers, apply. There we go, now it worked. Okay. So by hitting generate data layers, you are generating the vertex groups that are present on the one you're copying from onto the one that you're copying to. Because remember those vertex groups, we removed them, they weren't there before. So when you hit apply, it does what you want it to do. So you can delete the duplicate, you don't need that anymore, and you just transferred all the weights. All you had to do was rename them. Okay, so that's the other way to mirror. And if you use nearest vertex, it should be exact based on, because the vertices are in the same location. But if it's not exact, I would do nearest face interpolated, because that's kind of like more of a guess based on the layout of the two topologies and how they like stack on top of each other. I usually use nearest face interpolated if it's not totally symmetrical. And whenever you're doing any kind of transfer function, that would be what I would suggest defaulting to, because that seems to be the most accurate when the topologies do not match, but when they're very similar. Okay? All right, so those are the three ways? Yeah, the three ways to mirror. And also, if it's already symmetrical by default and the bone names are correct, the bitpan_L. The valve biped format does have correct bone names for mirroring. If you turn on X mirror and it knows that it's symmetrical, remember you have to snap to symmetry so it knows it's symmetrical. Let's unlock everything. Let's go ahead and paint on the wrist. Check the other side. You see it duplicated it over here. It mirrored it because X mirror was on, and it is in fact symmetrical, and Blender knows that it's symmetrical. Watch, I'll paint over here. Go over to the hand. You see it also did it on this side. If you're working on a bone that has no mirror and X mirror is on, you see it just paints it to the other side of the mesh if it's symmetrical. Okay? Alright, that's everything. I've been talking for a very long time, and I would like to stop talking now. So I really hope you watch this video, because I spent an hour and 35 minutes making this, I think, and hopefully it helps you. Alright, it's going to take a long time to upload this video.